All right, we'll go ahead and get started since the pastor preached a little long. He apologizes. So go ahead and you can find a seat and we will get started with our presentation. We can open in prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Well, good and gracious God, we just thank you for this time to gather as your church, as your people. We ask that your Holy Spirit be with us as we discuss these things, to see the path that you put in front of us. Help us and guide us and lead us to truly be your followers of Jesus Christ for the sake of this world. It's our Son's holy and precious name we pray all these things. Amen. Amen. All right, again, thank you so much for being here. This presentation was given to the council by me, and the council kind of stewed on it a little bit and tweaked it and talked about it, and some changes were made because of it, of our discussions. Again, this is all stuff that is for discussion. We, as the people of Advent Lutheran Church, as followers of Jesus Christ, we have to decide, where God is leading this congregation and what God wants us to do. Again, I have some ideas, the council has some ideas, and we're hoping that that's the direction, at least that we can go into and figure out those details as we go. This presentation is a combination of the presentation that I gave last year when we were talking about the sale of Melbourne Beach. And so you'll see some very similar themes, but a little bit more meat to the bones, so to speak. So I will give the presentation about the vision and mission, and then Jerry, our council president, will come up and give the presentation about the logistics and details of the sale of Melbourne Beach. I'm going to have to take off at some time to go and preach at the 11 o'clock service, but that will be during Jerry's time, so hopefully all the questions that I need to be answered will be answered at that time. If not, Jerry can always make it up like he usually does. All right, so some things have not changed of who we are here at Advent Lutheran Church. Our mission is one that we say at the end of every worship service, and it's still true to this day, that we are followers of Jesus Christ for the sake of the world. It's a great mission statement. There's no reason to get rid of that one. Of course, what we have to decide is, what does that mean and what does that look like in this day, in this world? The scripture that we focused on last year and continue to focus on is the Great Commission, Matthew 28, 18 through 20, which says, Jesus told disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and earth, therefore go make disciples in all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and then teach these new disciples to obey the commandments I have given you, and be sure of this, that I am with you always, even to the end of the world. This should be every Christian church's mission and vision scripture. This is what Jesus calls us to do before he ascended into heaven. So our scripture focus, again, this was given last time as well, to make disciples, to teach disciples, and send disciples. We want to be a congregation that is known for making, teaching, and sending disciples. And our vision is that we make, teach, and send disciples by connecting people to God and connecting people to people. And of course means many things. Of course, obviously connecting to God, people to God, is through worship, through Bible study, through personal testimony, through evangelism, and connecting people to people. It's helping each other, building up God's kingdom, making this world a better place. So we're going to make, teach, and send disciples by connecting people to God and connecting people to people. So what churches are growing? That's a question I get asked a lot. What Christian churches in America are growing? For those who were just worshiping, you heard my sermon talk about some statistics about churches and what they're doing and what they aren't doing. Well, I have discovered, after talking to many, many folks in the community, pastors in the community, outside the community, around the nation, all denominations, is the churches that are doing well are the ones that have found their niche. They're focusing on 2 or 3 things that they do well, and they're focusing on those things and pouring all their time and energy on those things. Again, in my sermon, I talked about, Paul said being all things to all people. Churches now are being more selective of the ministries that they focus on and kind of, again, their mission and vision of who they are and what they are doing. And those churches that are doing that are seeing the most, for the lack of a better word, growth. And again, growth can mean many different things. It can mean more people in the pews. It can be more giving. I like to say church growth means changing people's lives. How many people's lives have we changed? How many new people have been brought into the fold of the church, of the Christian church, who have discovered who Jesus is and what Jesus has done for them? And how many people have we helped? How many lives have we changed? And how are we making this world a better place that Jesus calls us? So what is our niche as Advent Lutheran Church? Well, again, I've said it before. We're making, teaching, and sending disciples of Jesus Christ, connecting people to God, and connecting people to people. And again, that looks like a lot of the stuff that we're doing already that we do well. Spiritual, fulfilling, and engaging worship. I think we do worship very, very well, both traditional and contemporary. Faith formation and discipleship opportunities of all ages. The church loves to use different language and words. So faith formation, discipleship is the words that people use now when they're talking about like Sunday school and Bible study and small groups or Christian education, all those types of things. That's what faith formation and discipleship is all about. So to have opportunities for all ages to do that. And then I think going to be a cornerstone of who we are and what we do is going to be the Advent Lutheran Community Engagement Center. As I look around this community, looking at the help that's needed in this community and far beyond this community, I think a community engagement center is missing. And I think we can fill that niche. We already do some things very, very well. We feed people very well through our food pantry. We have a great connection with Family Promise, and we were hosting people before. For those who haven't heard, this is not a place to spring it on you, but Don Rydeen, who was one of our greatest champions of our Family Promise, passed away yesterday peacefully, and Pastor Dave was with him, and we're very sad to see him go, but I remember so many hours spent with him as he was hosting groups here and the dedication he had for that. And I know he would love to see that ministry continue on in some way, some form. So the Advent Lutheran Community Engagement Center. So what does that look like? To remodel and update this facility that we're standing in, our Needler Center, Fellowship Hall, and our education building to create the Advent Lutheran Community Engagement Center. And again, the key word for me there is engagement. How are we engaging our community? How are we helping? How are we making this world a better place? Because I truly believe when we do that and we make a difference in people's lives and we share God's love, grace, mercy, and forgiveness with people, the other stuff comes. Growth comes, participation comes, all that stuff comes. But we are definitely called to make, teach, and send disciples. So what can it be used for? What can the Community Engagement Center be used for? We already use it for groups like AA, but we can use more support groups like AA, NA, grief groups, and divorce care. People are looking for those types of things. After school programs are well needed in this area. Homeschool associations have become a big popular thing here in Florida because of the public school system. We get contacted quite a bit by some big homeschool associations that are looking for places to hold classes and to do different things with the classes. Daytime care for adults with memory issues. This is a huge one as well. I had initial conversations with Market Street down the road in our community about how we can do this. for people who take care of loved ones in their homes that have memory issues? Can we be a place, 2 times a week or whatever it is, however we decide it, that they bring people here and we can have events for them? We can have, I've seen this done before. Faith Vieira does this. Faith Vieira Lutheran does this at Vieira Boulevard, and it's a time to give caregivers a break, but also, give the people who are receiving care a break. You do crafts and sing-alongs and different things like that, and it can be a really, really big outreach and engagement to our community. Office and meeting space for our ministry partners. Our Family Promise is moving to Cocoa in this great, wonderful new building, but moving not far north. They're looking for possibly some space here. There's Lutheran counseling services. There is there's a Habitat for Humanity and some other places too that we can work with for that kind of stuff, possibility. Day camps during the summer. Always get asked this question a lot. Are you guys doing any day camps this year? We didn't do one this year, but that would open it up for that as well. And that's mostly in the education building. Again, no plans have been made yet. Obviously, we would take some money from the sale of Melbourne Beach to get these places up to date, but those are just some ideas. Again, this place, this wonderful kitchen we have, and the fellowship hall, it can be a teaching kitchen. We can have fundraisers in here, banquets in here for nonprofits who want to do that, receptions, recitals, concerts, HOA meetings, which we have some already. There's endless amount of space that we can use this for to reach out to the community. As much as I love being a worship community, a faith community, Advent Lutheran Church, I think it would be even better to be known as the Advent Community Engagement Center that also worships on the weekend. If we can be known in the community by this Community Engagement Center, I think that's going to be our niche. So you have to start somewhere, right? You have to focus on something first, because there's so many things that you can do and can be a part of. So I picked 2 of them, and again, council talked about this as well. One of them is the Homeschool Association, so we get asked this all the time. This would also be a revenue for our congregation. Again, nothing has been signed or written or even discussed about what that looks like. We have to make sure that these homeschool associations follow our beliefs about acceptance and love and mercy, and that everyone is born a child of God and born beautifully and wonderfully made. So those discussions still have to happen. But those are people already knocking on our door looking for space. And then again, the daytime care for adults with memory health issues. I think that's an easy one to get started. I think there's a great need for it. We have a connection with Market Street off of Morel. We actually have someone from Advent who is in there, and I think we can get that going, and we can work with Faith Vieira and see how they do it. I've done it in other congregations, so that's one that we could probably get going right on. And food, we feed people, and we're known for feeding people, which is amazing and wonderful. So how can we expand our food ministry? An Advent member has approached me about partnering together to start a new profit. I left that in there, sorry. You can kind of figure out who that is, if you want to figure out who that is. Not intentional. Anyway, serving hot meals out of the kitchen at some point in time, having a teaching kitchen, having a food truck go out to the community and serve hot meals, providing cooking lessons for people for their food to last longer. Again, we give bags of groceries to folks, but what if we had an opportunity for them to come and take that bag of food and see how they can use that for the longest stability, and not only longest stability, but cook healthy and long-lasting meals as possible. I think that would be a wonderful way, not to just give them food, but to show them what to do with that. So those are the things that we would first focus on with the Advent Lutheran Community Engagement Center. All right. Before we get to the pastoral leadership for that, any questions or comments about the mission, the vision, and the Community Engagement Center? Again, you can always send your thoughts and comments to Jerry and myself. We will have some handouts that has all this information on it as well, so you can take that home with you, look at it. Any questions, any concerns, let us know, and we want to have that dialogue with you. All right, so the pastoral leadership to accomplish this mission and vision. And this is what the call committee has been working on, to call another pastor, another full-time pastor. Again, the plan right now is for Pastor Dave to stay 1/3 time until the next pastor comes, or December 31st. That is the current plan. But there's flexibility in that plan. We do not have a candidate yet. We've had our paperwork turned in for about a month, and we have not gotten any candidates from the Senate yet, so who knows how long that's going to take. Again, the process usually takes about 9 months to a year, and Pastor Dave said he has some flexibility in that schedule, but again, that is our plan, either when the next pastor comes or December 31st. Is still correct, Pastor Dave? Okay, good. I ask him on a daily basis. So what does it mean? Call a pastor to be the pastor of discipleship. 2 church-wide assemblies ago, we just had one about 2 weeks ago, when the whole ELCA gets together and makes some decisions, like our Synod Assembly or our congregational meeting, we have a national church-wide assembly. 2 assemblies ago, they changed some classifications of calling a pastor. Churches now, congregations now call a pastor to that congregation. They do not call a pastor to a position, like an associate pastor, senior pastor, solo pastor. You're a pastor. That's different than what it was before. Now, congregations can have a job description that talks about what that pastor is going to do, and if they're an associate pastor or whatever they are, but according to the ELCA, a pastor is a pastor, and they're called to be a pastor of that congregation. The reason that is important is because we, as a call committee, with some input from the council and then the survey that we did with the congregation, our ideal candidate moving forward is a co-pastor with Pastor Jarrett, with me. What does that mean? Co-pastors have the same authority to decide the direction, mission, and vision of Advent. Co-pastors share preaching, worship, planning, and pastoral care equally and divide supervision based on ministry responsibilities. Co-pastors has become a lot more popular in many Christian churches. Again, not the ELCA. We're kind of, again, behind the times a little bit when it comes to this kind of leadership. But a lot of other churches do this. A lot of times they're married, but many times they're not. Why a co-pastor? Well, as an associate pastor, I've been an associate pastor the vast majority of my ministry. And I can tell you, with all sincerity, I have rarely felt like a full pastor of the church and a true leader of the church, which sounds harsh, and people are well-meaning and well-intended, but the question of, well, does the senior pastor know what you're doing, or does the senior, or I'm going to go to the senior pastor instead of talk to you, and stuff that's even harsher. I've been waiting to preach, and this has happened here too, but mostly here's been better than other places. But I've been there ready to preach. Someone's walked in and said, "Oh, are you preaching?" I said, "Yeah," and they walk out because they want to be with the senior. People call and ask who's preaching that weekend because they want the senior pastor to. I want the senior pastor to do my wedding. I want the senior pastor to baptize my child. All that kind of stuff. I've walked into hospital rooms and some people have said, "Oh, they sent the B team," right? Meaning I'm not the senior pastor. So being centric on one senior pastor is not how we are even designed to be. We have the people are the church. They elect a lay leadership who lead the church along with the pastor. We are designed to lead as a group. And I know this is not how the world works. I know that 100%. Those in the military, those in the corporate world or anywhere else will tell you, you can't have two bosses. It doesn't work. You can't do it. But as I said in my sermon, it is time to do new things. And I've seen this done and work well. Now, it takes the perfect candidate and the perfect person to do this. Dave and I have this relationship. I would assume if Dave was staying on, that he and I could be awesome co-pastors together. Because you do have to put your ego aside. You do have to talk about a lot of things. You do have to support the other when they make a decision that maybe you wouldn't make, but then you have the discussion later, and then you come out together in one voice. You can't triangulate, meaning Norm can't come to me and talk about Dave, or go to Dave and talk about me, and you have to say, no, that's an issue with you and Dave. You need to go talk to them about that. It takes the perfect combination of people to make this happen. And that's what we're looking for. Now, that person might exist, they might not exist. That candidate might be out there or not out there. But if we don't try, then we'll never know. So that is our ideal candidate for pastor. Now, we are meeting again, call committee meets again this Wednesday to talk about the fact that we don't have any candidates, and what does that mean, and what does that look like, and we'll continue to talk about what that looks like. But again, for me, having co-pastors takes out all that red tape and really allows both to go and do the things that God has called them to do without having to worry about, does the senior pastor care or not, because we're both co-pastors. So, the pastor discipleship would specifically develop, direct, and lead the overall church lifelong faith formation. There's that word again, faith formation, discipleship, strategy that aligns with the needs of the church and the community and encompasses the overall spiritual health, growth, development, and accounting for various ministry growth stages. Very churchy words, churchy job description. What does that look like? So this is all the stuff that we're responsible for. Planning, leadership, training, communication. So everything from birth to death that has to do with faith formation, that has to do with small groups, that has to do with Bible study, that has to do with even the small groups that we have already, like our volunteers and the choir and the bell choir, all these groups, they would work in there how we are growing in faith. This is the making and teaching portion of making disciples, the making and teaching portion of disciples. So they work within the community to raise up the leaders and volunteers, making sure everybody is plugged in and engaged in spiritual faith formation, and also look outwards. And they help with the youth and young adults and different stages and different milestones, empty nesters, all this kind of stuff that the church works with. That's what this pastor would be doing and focusing on, again, with the other stuff of preaching and worship leading and pastoral care and all that. So, again, a lot to do, but there's a lot to do. And that, again, came directly from the survey, too. The survey that we had for the congregation talked about youth and children ministry, and that being a very important part of who we are. We had Joy here, which was great and wonderful. With COVID, and unfortunately we weren't able to keep her. But having a pastor doing this and leading this, I think is a great way to go. So what does that mean for me? That I would be pastor of mission outreach. Did you know when I first came here, that was my title. I was pastor of mission and outreach, or pastor of mission and outreach. And I never got to do that fully, unfortunately. We had a capital campaign when I first got here. I did capital campaigns before. And they said, why don't you do this one? And looking back, it was my first council meeting, and I'd been here for a month. I should have said no. I really should have said no. I'm going to spend time getting to know the congregation and doing the stuff that they call me to do. But I did it. I said yes. It was successful, and we did what we wanted to do, which is great. But then Pastor Dave had his health issue. COVID came, and I became acting senior, and I never quite got to this. I had a whole bunch of plans right before COVID during the season of Lent, and we had speakers coming in, and I made all these connections in the community, and I was excited for it. Still have those connections, which is great, but never fully did that. So again, pastor of mission outreach, main responsibility with leading the congregation community engagement, evangelism by modeling, teaching, and implementing programs to encourage Christ-like stewardship of life, resources, and time. And for me, it's through authentic relationships. Again, connecting people to God and connecting people to people. So what does the pastor of Mission Outreach do? If you notice, I gave myself more tasks. This literally came from my call paperwork. So this was my job description when I first came here 4 years ago. But basically, it's everything to do with engaging the community, evangelism, stewardship, and of course, it crosses with the pastor of discipleship, right? We'll work together on stuff like volunteers and events and different things like that. We'll always be working together, but my main focus is engaging the community, evangelizing, building up God's kingdom, and helping people and making this world a better place. Questions about the mission and vision and the pastor we're trying to call and our job descriptions. Any questions or comments about that?
Do you have copies?
We will. So actually, as soon as he gets into the Sail Melbourne Beach, we're going to hand those out because that has some maps and stuff on it. So, anything else? Yes.
So December 31st is Pastor Dave retiring?
So right now, that is the plan. Either he'll retire if another pastor starts before December 31st, he'll retire, but a lot of things have to happen to make that happen, and right now, we're probably not on that timeline, but we talked about him retiring on the 31st. He actually is, according to the ELCA, he's actually retired on paper, but he's still working 1/3 time. But yeah, but again, if we don't have a pastor by then, he said that there's some flexibility in that. He doesn't want to leave us all by myself. But yes, that is the plan. All right, Jerry? Oh, go ahead.
Will Pastor Dave still be able to come to this church if he retires?
So luckily we have a history of that, which is great and wonderful. Usually it's no, at least not right off the bat. And we have talked about that a little bit, and I think he would take some time away. It's not you, it's him. Take some time away to just be away. And thanks for asking that question. That always brings up Lori. Lori plans on being on staff past December 31st, no matter what. So she's going to continue to play on Saturday night. She's going to continue to do the kids' chimes and some of the children's stuff that she does with Kids Town and all that stuff. So she plans on being part of the community and being on staff until she doesn't want to be anymore. So.
Will Pastor Rick ever be able to come back and be just part of the congregation?
Yes, he is able to, and I know this will sound harsh, but he has told me for the foreseeable future that will not be happening. So, and again, it's not you, it's just him and what the stuff he wants to do. But yes, he can come back and be a part of this worship community if he wants to eventually. Usually it's like a year, but for Advent, I see like 6 to 9 months would probably be more likely. But again, it's up to them to decide. Yes, Ken? Yeah. Did you have your hands up? Sorry. I thought I saw your hand up. Yes.
You are stretching.
Okay. Gotta be careful. If this was an auction, you would have bid. Yes, Josh.
So I don't know if this is coming later, but logistically, next steps. When do we get into structure of that community center and how we're supporting it staff-wise?
Yeah. Well, Jerry will cover that.
Let's get into that later.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So I'm going to give this to Jerry, and he's going to share a little more.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. So we're going to talk about this. There's not very many slides. There's only a handful, but we'll be asking. We'll be talking about some of the details and of the sale. I will tell you this, we have a contract. We have signed the contract by both sides of the thing. We're just into the inspections. And so we'll talk through what that really means as we go forward. So the sale price in the contract that we've signed is $2 million. We, both of us being Advent and Rock Harbor Church, did our separate appraisals. And so we converged on this price, and I would say both parties are happy with the price, given what the appraisals were. The closing date is November the 1st. However, we have allowed in the contract provision for 2 30-day extensions to that if Rock Harbor has problems getting their financing in order. They are kind of ahead of the game. We don't anticipate them needing longer than November 1st. They would like to get in there on November 1st if at all possible. So that is what we're shooting for, is November the 1st. As we talked about in the January meetings, or the meetings leading up to the January vote, we do have lease-back agreements for the worship and the associated spaces with that for our traditional service down at Melbourne Beach, and also lease-back agreements for the Grace Preschool operations. And we have worked closely with Deb Hogan to understand what the footprint she has today at the preschool and what footprint she desires for tomorrow, which wouldn't surprise anybody, the same she would like. And we worked closely with Pastor Kevin from Rock Harbor Church to see if we can secure that through the negotiations. And we came out fairly close, so we'll talk a little bit about that. This map. So I'm just going to orient you a little bit.
There should be a laser.
Is there a laser on here?
You're going to have to. No, I thought there was.
Nothing up my sleeve. Friends. No. I've got a laser right here. So I'll just talk about this a little bit. Just to orient you down the campus, some of you are familiar with it, I'm sure. This is the sanctuary here, where the number 1 is. B is the sacristy room. A is just another room off to the side of the sanctuary. When you walk in the front doors of the lobby area here, there's an office here. There's, a classroom here. It's ABC or 3 other classrooms that the preschool uses. Then now you're over in the fellowship hall in this area here. This is affectionately known as the quilting room. Here is the room, the choir room. This is a closet, a storage space where all the tables and chairs are, and a separate closet here. The kitchen area up here, office here, office there. And then down in the preschool portion of the campus, this is what they refer to as the outside classroom. And then these are the major classrooms, G, H, I, F, J. This J is a closet, and in between here where this number 8 is the restrooms for the children's preschool. G, H, and I are the offices. Right now, the Hope's office is in the very back. This is the front office, and this is a kind of a small kitchenette area that serves the building. And of course, then the playground area is out there, and outside storage. And I think that's it. And if you haven't figured it out, this is the parking lot. So there you go. So, given that, you can see how this drawing actually came from Rock Harbor as part of their negotiations back with us. Does it want to advance? Okay. Nothing up your sleeve either? That worked.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here's what we've done. We agreed to lease the public worship area the following premises from Rock Harbor. So we had the sanctuary, the narthex, the fellowship hall, the faith formation meeting, the quilting room, the nursery and its contents, use of the restrooms every Sunday from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. unless otherwise specified. So what we really have done there is just basically reverse the roles of tenant and landlord between us and Rock Harbor for that portion of it. This, we both have agreed, when I say we both, we and Rock Harbor have agreed, Pastor Kevin, Pastor Jeremy, and myself have agreed that what we have in these contracts and these lease agreements are what we'll call the minimum requirements that we are signing up for, that we are leasing for. But just as today, when we have our lease agreement with Rock Harbor, what we have in these lease agreements, we provide more than that to them as courtesy for help them work through their worships. And the same thing is going to happen now. There's things that we have access to that aren't in this lease agreement. They're verbal agreements, but the things that we will be using when we need them, cooperating with Rock Harbor, negotiating those items each and every time we use them. So a very good relationship. The rental fee, agree to pay a sum of $2,500 per month each month, and then the annual rental increase should be at 3% per year. So for as long as we keep this relationship moving, we'll be paying $2,500 a month. Right now, Rock Harbor pays us $3,400 a month in the opposite direction, but this is what we've agreed to. The term of the lease is 1 year and renewable, and the lease termination is 3 months in written notice by either party. And the utilities will be provided by landlord. This is not all of the agreement. This is just the highlights of the agreement, but the other details are just the details. And also, you know, we don't have details in here like that we'll be moving the altar for the services like we do today. When Rock Harbor comes in after our service down there, they move the altar back, they put up a screen and hold their services. We'll be doing that same kind of thing. It'll just be in the opposite direction. The organ and piano that we have are going to remain in the sanctuary, and we're responsible for maintaining the organ and the piano, but it's there for our use. They don't have any intentions of moving that out and making us move it back every time. So those kind of things won't be written into the lease agreement, but we will have agreements with them on how we will handle that. Any questions on that portion of the lease back? Tom?
Education part of the building is not part of the lease. Where does the money generated from that help us or help Rock Harbor?
So we have two lease agreements. This lease agreement is only talking to the worship portion, sanctuary, and I'm about to talk about the lease agreement for the school. Any other questions on the sanctuary portion of the lease? Worship portion of the lease? Okay. So the preschool. I think we skipped one maybe? No? Okay. Go back. Go for it. So we talked about the spaces that we're going to have and that map, and if it's working now?
I think so.
All right, let me go back to the map real quickly. So if you look at that, the orange color, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J, you can see those across there. The A, B, C, and D are classrooms that are in the main building, campus building, which are classrooms today, and there'll be classrooms tomorrow that we rent. The outside classroom E, the inside classrooms in the classroom building G, H, I, F, and J. Those are all classrooms today, and they will be classrooms tomorrow after the sale that we will be leasing back. The three offices, G, H, and I in the green, we'll be leasing those back as well. So basically the same footprint that we have today for the preschool, we will have after the sale. The only difference will be that storage space will be sharing storage space within those classrooms, and Rock Harbor will be using those classrooms on weekends. So we have a special use agreement that we've signed with them that talks about how we must leave the classrooms when we leave Friday afternoon, school leaves Friday afternoon, the stages of the classroom, such as put everything away because you don't want to mix the classroom stuff with the Christian education that Rock Harbor will be doing in those same classrooms on the weekend, and also when they leave on Sunday night, how they have to leave it back to the school when they walk in the door on Monday morning. So we have both sides covered. Deb Hogan was instrumental in helping put those words together with Pastor Kevin, so both sides are happy with the agreement that we've written. So there should be no disruption. It's just going to take some collaboration and a little bit of cooperation in doing that.
Talk a little bit about the fellowship hall too. Just the fact that the school isn't going to be using it.
I didn't hear what
The
you
fellowship hall?
Fellowship hall. So in the past, we've used the fellowship hall during classrooms time, but they've done some work over the summer. Just before the summer got here, Deb Hogan secured a grant from the state of Florida, and that grant helped take those classrooms and all the old carpeting and everything that's in the classroom and replace them with wood plank floor. So the flooring is in there, the space opened up. So we are planning not to use the fellowship hall for classroom areas. Now, Pastor Kevin has said, hey, during inclement weather, if we have, we can't go outside during our time that we'd normally be outside with the kids, they can use that hall, and they'll be doing that, negotiating those time, making sure it doesn't interfere with something that Rock Harbor is doing on those days. And also, the lease agreement does talk about the fact that we make any changes to any of the buildings. So let's assume they do close on November 1st. They're going to be anxious to get in and start doing some work to change the configuration of the buildings a little bit. And they've agreed that they won't start any of that until after the school year is over with. So there'll be no disruption to the schoolroom classrooms during that time. So we'll use both the fellowship hall and the kitchen when we need to for both our worship service gatherings and for the school. But all that will have to be coordinated each time we do that with Rock Harbor, as you might suspect it would be. Okay, any questions on what we're getting for the school lease? I will talk about the provisions for that. We've agreed to pay the sum of $4,000 per month for that lease, for that square footage. Typically in the Melbourne area now, commercial leasing's running about $1 a square foot. This comes out to something closer to 60 cents a square foot, so much reduced price. And it's also reduced because we don't have full ownership of that space, right? We're going to be sharing the space. Even though we're leasing the space, we're going to be sharing that space as well with Rock Harbor. The lease term is rental is for 5 years, renewable, and again, we can terminate that each on an annual anniversary with a 3-month written notice. We talk about the annual anniversary of the school because if we're going to terminate it, we're not going to terminate it during the school year. That is our plan. So if either side wants to terminate the lease, they can't do it during the school year. Because once we start, it'll obviously be unfair to the parents of those children to go somewhere else. Told you it was short. That's what it is. Yes, Tom.
Money that is raised by the school, how does that get distributed?
So right now, I will tell you this. It's been confusing, I think, to most people of what the relationship is with the school and the church. The school is a ministry of the church. It hasn't necessarily been run that way in the past because the school has basically been operating as a separate entity in itself. They right now put back into the church $6,000 a month, which is a number that they agreed on early on. It's just money that comes from the proceeds the school brings in. Above and beyond that $6,000, there's also money that is basically a profit or an excess of cash over the expenses. And that money the school has been allowed to operate utilizing that money, getting permissions to spend, but utilizing that money to keep the school running. Right? There's obviously expenses that go with that. But any net proceeds from the church or from the preschool is Advent Lutheran's money. Any net proceeds is Advent. We just haven't been separated and controlling it as well as we will be in the future with this lease agreement as we go forward. Because right now, the Advent checking account pays for power, pays for water, pays for air conditioning, pays for copier supplies, and believe me, the school uses a lot of copier supplies. And so we are going to separate those budgets so that they're more autonomous with the school, so that when we do lease back that property, that we can control those within that separate budget. Still part of Advent, still part of the mission of Advent, but we will have a closer control over those fundings. The rent is going to be just paid, and then we'll be giving that rent to Rock Harbor. Rock Harbor will be supplying the school with all the utilities. They'll be splitting the cost of Wi-Fi, those kinds of things. So all that's in the lease agreement of how that will be handled, so it becomes clear lines of demarcation where the school picks up and the landlord picks up as far as taking care of the facility itself. Questions? Yes?
So the preschool bank accounts finally get rolled into the church bank accounts, or are they still separate?
They are still separate, but we are working towards that. And just to talk a little bit about and I'll refer to Josh's question earlier too, is we have put together a new finance committee, and as you all may know, Norm Preskin is our treasurer, and so on our finance committee, we'll be meeting starting really soon to start talking about how we will manage this $2 million that comes into the church. Obviously, you know, what happens when you get a big glut of money, everybody goes, oh great, there's all these things I've been wanting to do, and let's just go do them. And if we don't take precautions, that $2 million will be gone the day after tomorrow, and we'll be standing around going, what happened? So the council and the finance committee's recommendations will be worked on very hard between now and November, and then probably even harder after November. We're going to take a portion of the money that we talked about to pay off the mortgage. We're going to take a portion of the money to go towards our general operating fund debt, which is right now around $200,000, because we have been losing. When I say losing, we have had more expenses less than our contributions every month for a couple of years now. We are going, you know, we have in the last 3 months had greater than $40,000 in debt because of our general contributions, so just aren't there. 2 years ago, we had a budget of $840,000. We didn't come close to that. So this past year, the council and the finance committee put together a new budget, and we lowered that to $710,000, and we didn't come close to that. You know, we had expectations. Everybody's trying to feel their way of coming out of the pandemic. What's that really look like? So we made our best estimates and so this year, as we put the budget together, we're going to have to revise it again and figure out, come closer to the mark, if you will, as we put the budget together and look at that. Obviously, if we pay off the mortgage, we'll have a different cash flow than we have today, but we're also incurring rent that we haven't had in the past. So we'll be figuring out that cash flow analysis and looking at, you know, where the money is going to be coming in, how much it's going to be in, what we have to budget for, what we have to change as far as services and those kinds of things. If we want to go engage in this engagement center, it's obviously going to take some funds, so we have to figure out how much of those proceeds from the sale we really want to spend on that up front. So all of those things is what this finance committee and the council will be working on between now and November, as well after November and throughout the year as we manage the money. The primary goal of the council is to be good stewards of the congregation's money, and so that is what we'll be doing. And it's not going to be easy, but we're very committed to making sure that these funds aren't squandered away, because it's really important that we take care of them. Tom?
When it comes to the financial committee, will we know who's on that? If there's any open positions that somebody's interested in getting into it? And will we get some kind of reports on a regular basis at what they're talking about, like minutes to the meetings or whatever, that type of thing? Just curious.
Yeah, so the finance committee is an advisory committee to the council. The council puts minutes out every month, and so there will be information provided, what's going on from the council minutes every single month. And yes, we will make known to the folks what the committee, who is on the committee. So if you want to contact them to give them your thoughts, you can as well. Norm Preskin is our treasurer. He's kind of the focal point for the finance committee. So, you know, if we could make sure that you try to go through Norm, I think it would be easier to have a single point of contact to gather your ideas and thoughts as we go through this. But we will be communicating regularly. Ron?
Jerry, what is the present mortgage balance?
It's about, Norm, $890,000 roughly?
It's actually better than that. It's about 810 by November time.
Okay.
Thank you. And do we have some estimates to create the community enrichment center?
Not yet, because we wanted to first get to the information just in front of you guys, just to start talking about it, make sure we get feedback from you, and then we'll start the process of getting, you know, we'll start the process of trying to figure out what the first steps are. We did meet at the council retreat this past 2 weeks ago, I think it was, and recognize that the very first step is to clean out the classroom building so we can see what we even have there before we decide how we want to change it. And so, and by the way, it brings up a good point. We talk about ways to connect, and one way to connect is always to bring people together for a task. And so a task we have in front of us is to clean out the classroom building. A task we also have in front of us is the attic down at Melbourne Beach campus. just like the attic here, Tom, was there a couple things up there? The attic here that we cleaned out, we found a lot of stuff. In fact, that's what's mostly in the classroom building down there, is the stuff that was in the attic. So, but we need to go down to Melbourne Beach because Rock Harbor is going to turn that attic into a youth group area. And so we will be cleaning out that. And of course, we don't have the storage space that we used to have down there as a tenant. So we'll be bringing some of that back up to here. And so there's things to be done, and we hope to see a lot of you there when we're doing it. So, but that's just something down the road. So once we get the classroom building cleaned up and we start having conversations about acting on the things that Pastor Jeremy presented, then we'll be getting estimates. And, you know, there's some things that we know we will need to do in order to accomplish that, like upgrade the bathrooms there. We tentatively do not want to go in and start, you know, taking down walls and putting up walls. There's partitions over there. We can maybe fix those or get them working. We're trying to make, what we'll do is try to make as least amount of expenditure in getting the place ready to be able to serve the community, but also has got to make it sanitary and safe for the people we're bringing in. Excuse me. Bill.
The other question I had on the sale is, who holds the paper on the sale? Is the sale going to be one lump sum, or is it going to be distributed over a year, or how are these funds?
Yeah, it's a lump sum. They'll be coming with money from their loan, so it'll be cash to us. We had considered holding the paper, but it just didn't make sense with the interest rates that we were having and the expenditures that we knew we had right up front, the mortgage and that. So we did not put that up. We talked about it with Rock Harbor, but we ended up not providing that as an option. So it will be cash to us from their loan. And they have already secured the loan. We have a paper from their lending entity that says that they are approved for the $2 million. So, and we have received $50,000 in earnest money from them already. So, well, it's being held in escrow.
Are we still going to have our attorney handle the sale?
Yes, Dale Detmer is, and he was on the sale committee. So the sale committee was made up of myself, Pastor Jeremy, Dale, and Bill Stanton. And we worked through all that, and Dale is doing the closing. He's been in all the negotiations with us, and so we're confident that we've got a good contract. Other questions? Josh, did I answer your question enough, or do you want more?
We can talk later.
Okay. Well, it's a good question, so I want to make sure that we understand what's going to happen, because obviously we're going to take some of these proceeds from the sale and we're going to go put them somewhere where we can't touch them easily, so that we can live off the interest of that as we go forward in time. You can squander away $2 million quicker than you think. We all know that, and so we're going to make sure that doesn't happen. We obviously will need some of the funds up front for pay off a mortgage, looking at our debt and the general contribution funds, those kinds of things as well. So we don't want to create a slush fund over on the side that we can all go pick out our favorite little items we want to go work on with the church as we go forward, because that would be a disaster.
Yeah, so Jerry, my question was more around next steps of setting up the staffing structure and support and volunteers needed in order to get the community center up and running, which programs and who makes those decisions, and more of that type of structure and next steps of how because this is a new world we're getting into. I don't think we necessarily did all that well of who gets the space, who gets the classrooms. And
Right.
It was more haphazard in the past. I think there was some organization, but when you get into a community event to do it right, there needs to be that structure there and support.
Right, and what Pastor Jeremy was talking about earlier, when we talked about we wanted to get this thought in front of the congregation and then start that detailed planning. So the council will take a first whack at, how do we think we need to set it up? Then we'll be looking for people, volunteers, to be on these different committees to go make sure that we get a deeper dive into each area and focus on the things we know we have to do to make that happen. So it'll be a full engagement. And we do want it to be, my background is process-driven processes, and I'm going to continue that here in this role as well, because it's real important that we have processes that we follow so that we don't get sidetracked and we don't get disillusioned with what we're trying to get done. So
So I've thought about this already because it's kind of planner I am as well, but Ashley, Director of Operations, and I already have talked about policies and contracts and fees for the space, and we're getting all that stuff figured out so we have those things ready to go. And I would get together people who are passionate about all those different things that we talked about, the food expansion, the Homeschool Association, and the memory care stuff, and get people started working on that kind of stuff, making those connections and seeing, because like you said, we have to figure out who's going to use it, when they're going to use it, and how much they're going to use it for, if we're going to charge. The Advent member, not to be named, and I have talked about what the food stuff is going to look like, and about grants, and even Ashley's looking at some grants, so maybe we don't have to use the money from the sale, we can use some grant money to help with that as well. So those are all things that are kind of percolating already, but at the same time, I didn't want to present it like, this is what we're doing and let's go. If we get feedback that this is absolutely not who we should be and it's not our niche, then we need to go back to the drawing board. But there are those things already in the background working on this. Yes, Tom?
Just to give people perspective of what we're looking at and what we need to do in the future. The other day I was just walking around the property and I realized there's a 50-year-old oak tree growing in the middle of the playground. It's a beautiful playground that I wish we could open and let everybody use. But the tree is actually growing into the roof and everything. And I'm thinking, I walk through every oak tree in here needs to be thinned out, trimmed out, and everything. It's money like that where it's coming from. So it's just not getting the property or the building ready or stuff. It's things like that also are going to be added into the mix, that if we want to open this property up to others and invite them in, those are things we got to address along with everything else. So just giving you an idea of how much it's going to be involved.
Yeah, so that's why.
And if I may ask, anybody willing who has the knowledge, tree trimmings or anything else, and are willing to volunteer your time and service, man, I'd welcome you. So, and there might be people in the congregation that have that ability. So getting the word out for things like that would be important.
Yeah, there's more to it, as you stated, Tom. There's more to it than just the buildings themselves. There's all kinds of logistics issues and other things we have to go work through. Some of these things will cost money. Some of these things will just cost time. But all of them will require planning and forethought, for sure. Deesh.
We have $2 million coming from the sale, but right away out of that we're getting $810,000.
Right around 810, yes. Whatever the mortgage is.
We got $1,200,000.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, and so as we go forward, we'll be looking at, how much of that 1.2, if you will, how much of that we want to put away and not touch, and then, because these are wonderful ideas that we want to go do, but we've got to make sure that we can afford them, right? And so, some of these things that outreach will bring in money, some of them won't, right? That's our commitment to the community, for our worship to the community. So we've got to figure out which ones get even a higher priority than some of the other ones, and as we go forward. So it's not just a slam dunk, okay, throw the switch, we're going to go do this, right? There's a lot of logistics to go with it. So, other questions or comments? So that's what we have. As you can see, there's a lot to be thinking about. The council has been working hard thinking through this with Pastor Jeremy. The call committee has been working hard getting ready for the call of the new pastor. And so we have to work out all of those details as well as the financing for them. And we are in the process of doing that. And we will keep you informed as we go forward. And please don't hesitate to contact myself or Norm for any questions for these kinds of things as we go forward, or ideas or concerns about the financing, because it's part of the big deal. Doris?
Or any council member.
Oh yeah, that's true. Any other council members that you're familiar with, we can talk, they can get the work back to the right places. Have a great day.
Thank you.